Alright guys, today I'm going to be doing my version 1 mock draft, and honestly, the draft is pretty much in a month from today. It starts in the end of April. So, just let's hop right into it. The Titans, I'm starting to lean towards that they will take Cam Ward unless a trade back. I'm not really too positive that they will trade back, but I mean Cam Ward is the number 1 quarterback in this class, no doubt in my mind. But I think that I wouldn't hate the move either. And what I'm doing this based off of is what just kind of what I think they will do and what I would do. I'm just kind of, I might be going back and forth, might be a little unbalanced, but just kind of what I think the smartest pick is and what the team might be leaning towards. I think it's been clear that Cam Ward seems to be what the team's direction is going to be. So taking him number 1. And with the Browns, I if you think Shadur is a franchise turnaround guy, then obviously you take him, but I don't really believe he is. I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player. I'm not saying he's a bad prospect even, but I don't think he's going to be turning around your franchise. But with that being said, you've just tied in so much money to Myles Garrett, so it's like, do you really want to go ahead and take another defensive edge, which you could, because by the time Carter's rookie contract is over, Myles Garrett's contract should be about over. So you could look at it that way, as in they won't have to pay both of them at once. But is this a team that desperately could use a defensive end? I really just don't think so. But I do think the team could use tackle and go ahead and build those trenches on the offensive side. And I don't think that Will Campbell is a bad pick whatsoever here. Now, if the Giants, I think they're a little more desperate for quarterback than the Browns. And I know for the Browns, it's a little confusing if Deshaun Watson is going to play next year. I think he re-injured his he's going through a lower leg injury. I can't remember if it's in his knee or ankle, like if it's Achilles or ACL. But I know he re-injured it during rehab. I know that was a couple months ago, so I'm not too sure. It sounds like he most likely isn't going to play this upcoming year, but they restructured his contract with what seems to be the intent of sticking with him. So that's why I'm saying that they might not go quarterback, or at least in the first round. Both the Giants, I think they're a lot more quarterback hungry, and I think they're going to force the Shadur pick because of wanting to save their job. Now, I know Russ signed, I know Jameis signed, so it's just, what's the plan? Now, you're signing two kind of average quarterbacks, so that doesn't equal one good quarterback, obviously. And I'm not saying Russ can't be a good quarterback at times, but I do think that he's pretty average at this point in his career. But with that said, it feels that they're more likely to force a quarterback pick than the Browns are here. And I know the Browns don't like to draft very smart, but they're also not being smart by trying to keep Deshaun Watson around. So with that being said, I'll take Shadur to the Giants because I think they're more likely to force the pick. Now, with the Patriots, they have a couple directions with Will Campbell off the board. They could go Membu. I know he's been pretty good for Missouri, and a lot of people like him. I don't think they go defensive tackle. Obviously, they signed. I'm blanking on his name. He was in a video recently that I did, but I know they signed him. He's very good from the Eagles, so it's just, do you take edge to pair with him, or do you go ahead and take um Membu from Missouri? I think that's more likely. I think that you go ahead and you try to protect Drake May the best you can. Also, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong. I think I've heard it said some other way too. Both the Jaguars, I feel like Travis Hunter could make a lot of sense for them. It wouldn't surprise me to see now Abdul Carter, it wouldn't surprise me either to see him with the Patriots or even the Giants, except I feel like they like their front seven. Their front seven is definitely good enough. Both the Jaguars, I think they could kind of use either one. I would lean more towards Travis Hunter for them. Not too sure how well he'll fare with them. And it wouldn't surprise me if Hunter went sooner either. Now, if the Raiders, they have Crosby. So, I mean, do you really want to go ahead and try to bolster your front seven a whole lot more? I think it's definitely more important to try to help out the offense or to help out the defense, and that's going to be at either corner or receiver. So it's like, do you want to take Will Johnson or Teteroa McMillan? It's just, what do you value more right here? But I feel like this is a team that is heavily prioritizing offense. So definitely wouldn't surprise me to see them take McMillan right here. Although corner is definitely just about as important as receiver for this team. Next up, the Jets. They could also use an offensive tackle. Right here, Kelvin Banks Jr. would not be a reach whatsoever. But I think the Jets are a team that might be going best player available, and that's where you take Abdul Carter. And like I said, just when it comes to team fit, does Abdul Carter fall to pick 7? I don't really think so. I mean, with team fit, yes, but with what teams are prioritizing, I don't think so. I think he's going to be gone by pick 7. Now, with the Panthers, but just in this instance, I'm kind of going team fit and what it seems they're leaning towards. He's at 7. So the Panthers, they just um, signed J.C. Horn to that max deal. And in my opinion, I think they need corner, but I don't think you go ahead and take one in the first round with the contract you just handed out. Obviously, you have your number 1, and I think you wait to the second round to take your number 2 because this corner class is not bad whatsoever, right? Obviously, Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron will highlight the first round. Revel could sneak into the first, but he's definitely a guy that I think the Panthers would be happy to get in the second round. Same with Trey Amos. I think that he's definitely a solid second round guy for them. So I think the Panthers wait till the second round because they pick high enough to be able to get him. So it's just where do the Panthers go? They did lose out on defensive tackle. Obviously, I once again blanking on his name. He did go to the Patriots. I think Mason Graham, he's such a good player. You take the best player you can get on defense because it's just where this team's defense is. So I think Mason Graham is a great pick right there. So at number 9, I think the Saints, they just like to push the cap back. They're never going to fully rebuild. So it's just what do you think is the best fit and like what position do they think they need the most? The offensive line was actually a little worse last year, but it also just wouldn't surprise me to see them go edge, even though I believe they just re-signed Cam Jordan for whatever reason, or they restructured his contract or something, not to help him out at all. It doesn't truly help out the Saints, but that interior O line, obviously you have Fuanga from last draft, but that interior O line is definitely not quite the best. It's just at this position, do you think Kelvin Banks can translate towards the middle of the offensive line, or do you wait to take a center or a guard? I mean, I don't think you really consider Jeanty with the contract, with the extension with Kamara. I think Will Johnson would not be a bad pickup at all at this spot. So I think it's likely, I think it is likely that they will take Will Johnson here. Now, Gene T, a lot of people think he's going to go. I know he's still on there. I've seen him in the top 5 in some mocks. I'm not trying to undervalue the running back position, but I just think that I just when you're a team bad enough to be picking in the top 5, do you believe in picking a running back that high? I mean, that's just I think if you're a team picking like 10 to 20, a running back could be and I mean 10 and past, right? A good running back could be a a good draft pick to really move the needle, but just when you're picking top 10 or you know that high in the draft, it's just is a running back the best fit? And I just don't think so. But the Bears, luckily, they're at 10. They've done a decent job bolstering up the O line in free agency, but I think another I think another good tackle really is going to help you, come to being one of the best in teams in the league. So with that being said, I think that they go Darnell Wright here. I don't know why I said Darnell Wright. Kellen Banks. Sorry, just blanking a little bit. I think that Kellen Banks is a good pick there. Just go ahead and make sure that your offensive line is stacked all across. And I think you have enough picks in this draft to fill out other positions, but go ahead and give Caleb Williams as many offensive linemen as you can. Now, when it comes to San Fran, I don't think you take Gene T, even though it really wouldn't surprise me. It feels like a running back could be pretty useful to him, but they did lose quite a few defensive players. I know the Niners like to draft offensive linemen a little later, not later. but they like to draft them in the middle rounds, and they seem to get good value out of doing that. So I don't think they would be willing to take a guard here. Now, Shamar Stewart is there, and edge is definitely a position that would help quite a bit. But at the same time, Jalen Walker is there. I think he could pair pretty decent there in that front seven. So it's just, what do you think you want more? Do you want to go Shamar Stewart, or do you want to take Jalen Walker? It's what the Niners think that their need is going to be. In my opinion, I think you take Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Defensive players always seem to do pretty good in the NFL. So, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him go safety. I just don't think they will. I think it's a little high for Malachi Starks or Nick Emenwari. They're both. I know a lot of people are a little higher on Emenwari, and I definitely understand that too. As he's one of the, it's him and Malachi Starks for the top two safety prospects in the class. But next up, the Cowboys are a team that I think could benefit from Gene T. I know everyone likes to fit him because he's from Dallas or he's from Texas, I know. But I think it's legitimately a good move for them. And I mean, Javonte Williams, he's not showing what he showed in his rookie year. He's clearly not going to be the answer. And it wouldn't surprise me if they try a little committee there. I know they have someone else with Javonte. But I think you go Gene T, and if not, maybe you want to go safety or even, I don't really think receiver is a big enough need. So I think Gene T definitely makes sense there. I think that it's just from a building your roster, filling out spots, you're picking in a spot where it's like not a complete force to take a running back. I'm not saying picking a running back in the top 10 is a forced pick. I just don't think it depends on the team, but normally it's just not the best pick, and it's not going to help you move the needle. Anyway, with the Dolphins, here they do have options, but this O-line was absolutely atrocious last year. I don't know why I said atrocious, but guard is a need, and I think you take Tyler Booker out of Alabama, one of the best guard prospects in the class. I think that you just have to take O-line early in this draft if you are the Dolphins. Moving up to the Colts, obviously you got edge last draft class. Tight end is definitely a need. Tyler Warren out of Penn State, I think, would be so good for this team. You're going to give Anthony Richardson a target. You're going to tell him, go pass it to him, right? You need to get Anthony Richardson some big guys who can catch. They have a good catch radius, and hopefully that should help him to continue to develop. How do I feel about Anthony Richardson personally? I don't know. I think the Colts are just going to have to try to get him a target and just they got to help him. They got to be patient. He's younger than Shedeur, and I think he might be the same age as Cam Ward, so that's just something to keep in mind. Next up, though, the Falcons. This was not a good team defensively. I think Shamar Stewart is a great fit there. Maybe even Mykel Williams, just whoever they think will fit better or they need. Now, the Cardinals also, defensively last year, not the best. But do you think about taking a receiver to pair with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr.? I don't think so. If I'm being honest, I think it's just too early. I don't think it's a good idea to take the same position in back-to-back draft classes in the first round. Even though receiver is a position where you need multiples of, in my opinion, it's just not. You don't double up on it. Like, I see some people saying the Chiefs should take a receiver or trade up to get a receiver. I just think you take one, even though it was at the end of the draft class last year. And I don't think Xavier Worthy's going to be your receiver one. I just think you try to take a different position so you don't double up on it. And they definitely have a receiving room that's like a bunch of wide receiver twos. I see that as what Worthy ends up being. But I think the Chiefs can get great value. Let me just check his look from a guy like Jaden Higgins in the second round. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get him because I actually think he'll be a pretty prioritized receiver because he can go up and get you a jump ball, and that's what I personally like about him. So anyway, we should be talking about the Cardinals. Edge, you could definitely take edge here, and I think that's what you do. Back-to-back edge picks, but both teams definitely need it. We see a lot that having a good defensive edge is just great. You definitely put pressure on the other team's run game because you might force a team to want to run a little more. But I think that edge, one of the most important positions on defense. So I think it's a good pick for the Cardinals, who could use quite a few positions on the defense. Bengals up next. I don't think you take James Pierce Jr. here. I kind of have a feeling that Hendrickson will re-sign. I know the other guy, Sam Hubbard, retired, I believe. So do you want to go defensive tackle? Derek Harmon is a great defensive tackle, but do you think you should take him here, or do you think you go with James Pierce Jr.? Or do you consider Malachi Starks? I think Starks could be a pretty good safety for him. It's been a little bit since they've had a truly good safety, and it would not surprise me whatsoever if they took a safety here. But interior defensive line could also be a good pick for him there. So the Seahawks next. Seahawks, it's been a couple years since they've had a good O-line. Now, do you trust Josh Simmons coming off of injury? Or do you think about taking O-line, either guard or tackle, in the second round? Because there's a couple good offensive linemen down the board. Like Cameron Williams is not bad whatsoever. Connerly isn't. Now, Josh Simmons is a good prospect. It's just how high do you want to take him with the injury? Also, Gray Zabel and Donovan Jackson. I think that they're both good prospects. I think Jackson will probably go to the Chiefs. We'll talk about that more a little later. And, I mean, do you consider receiver if you're the Seahawks? My opinion, I think you should try to build a different position. I think you do need to get an edge because they don't really have a true cornerstone at defensive end right now. I think James Pierce Jr. is a fine pick for him there. With the Buccaneers, they did hold on to Chris Godwin. Obviously, they still have Mike Evans. So do you consider a safety or even a corner? When it comes to corner, I know Jahdae Barron, a lot of people seem to like. I've seen some people talk about him sneaking in the top 12. I'm just not too sure about that. But I think Jahdae Barron to the Buccaneers definitely makes a lot of sense. Now, the Broncos is my team. And honestly, I've just been so stuck on what should we do. I know we have Evan Ingram, but Colson Loveland would definitely be a good pickup too. And I know people like Matthew Golden. Sorry, I didn't mean to click that. But it's just, how much do you sit here and say that you should take another receiver when your receiver room is just so backlogged? I do like, I also like Egbuka in this class. But you have Marvin Mims Jr., you have Troy Franklin, you have Cortland Sutton, and you have Devon Vele. I think Vele ends up being like a receiver 3 or 4 by the end of the year because you're going to want to get Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims more reps. It's just, your receiving room is so backlogged that it's like, it's a bunch of wide receiver 2s, and that's no disrespect to Cortland Sutton. He's one of my favorite players, and I think he's just good enough that's okay to have him as your wide receiver 1, but do you want to go ahead and take a receiver this high? I feel like if you take a receiver later, it's just, you're still just adding another wide receiver 2. Now, my other issue here, I don't think you should take Amarion Hampton in the first round. Even though I like him, I just think that you can get better value in the second round. Like Quinshon Judkins, and Travion Henderson. Even Caleb Johnson are all good value. Cam Scatterbo, I know a lot of people like. They would all be good value in the second or third round. So how high do you think you are going to take a running back? And if Jeanty's here, I think that's the pick, but he's not. I don't think he's going to be there. And do you trade up for him? I think you consider it. It's just, it depends what they're thinking in that front office. Obviously, they've covered tight end and linebacker and safety, and that's some of the biggest positions I thought they needed. But Colson Loveland would not surprise me here. I mean, Evan Ingram's on a 2-year deal, and he's definitely more of a receiving threat than a true blocking threat, but you have a couple depth tight ends that can do that. And I like Dre Greenlaw. I think that's a great signing, and I also like Alex Singleton. But how much longer do you think Singleton's here? Will Greenlaw truly stay healthy? And I think you definitely do consider Jahad Campbell too. It's just, I think it's kind of a tough spot. Do you want to bring in Matthew Golden? And when it comes to, I know a lot of people like Golden because they think that his floor is pretty high. but that's kind of what you already have in Sutton. I do think that Loveland is still definitely up for grabs here. I know I'm taking way too long on him, on the Broncos here. But I think that interior defensive line is a little bit of a bigger need than some people say. And Derek Harmon would not surprise me whatsoever here. I think that you could definitely bolster it up. And yes, you have John Franklin Myers. You have DJ Jones, but I think this could be a slightly bigger, maybe not bigger, but slightly better interior defensive line. You have Nick Benito. You have Jonah Ellis, who you're trying to develop. You have, oh my goodness, blanking on his name. You have Jonathan Cooper, but I think you go ahead and add someone to the interior to be a true threat there. With the Steelers up next, it would not surprise me to see them try to go for Dart here. And I think they will, honestly. They seem to be really liking him. And I think Dart definitely has potential to develop into quite a good quarterback in the league. Now, with the Chargers, I think Colston Loveland definitely makes sense here, but you could go Matthew Golden. You could try to round out that receiving room. I know the receiving room just is not the best for him, but I think Jim Harbaugh would get more value out of Loveland, not just because he went to Michigan, but just because I think he could use a tight end a bit better than a true number one receiver. With the Packers, I think you take Matthew Golden. I think you go ahead and try to get that number one guy. Obviously, Nick Scorton is there. I know out of the Green Wave. Hold on. I know Mike Green. That's his name. I know a lot of people like him. Out of Marshall. They're still the Green something. I know a lot of people like him, even over Scorton and Donovan out of Boston College, but I think Matthew Golden is a good pick here. Jihad Campbell would not surprise me either. Now, the Vikings have Ivan, so I don't think they need Jihad Campbell here. But safeties definitely need, and I think Nick Emenwari could definitely help him. And he can even jump up in the box some. I think he's played some slot too, if I'm not wrong. The Texans and Josh Simmons just feels like a perfect fit in my opinion. So that's where I'll go there. Rams could also use a linebacker here, like how the Packers could. I think Jihad Campbell, now he'll go. I think that's a good fit there. With the Ravens, guard could definitely be the pick here. I think that they'll take Zabel out of North Dakota State. The Packers, I think interior defensive line is a bigger need than some people want to say. And Tyreek Williams out of Ohio State would definitely fit that need. They could use an edge too, but I really do think a defensive tackle would help them a lot. Now, if the Commanders, edge is definitely a need. Corner a bit of a need too. Like, do you take Revel? Maybe, right? I know their corner room. They did just get Marshawn Lattimore, but is he your number one at this point in his career? I don't think so, but edge, maybe a slightly bigger need. I think receiver could definitely be a pick too. And I actually think that Egbuka would be a good pick for him. With the Bills, I think you try to grab a receiver here, and it wouldn't surprise me if Revel went here, or even edge. I think you try to get someone on the opposite side of AJ Epenza. It's one of those two. I think it's the first one. Kind of butchering that. Just I'm reading it in my head right now, and I'm just the letters aren't lettering. But I think you could get corner. Wouldn't be a bad pick. Wouldn't be an awful pick whatsoever. You consider Walter Nolan, I think, too. But I think maybe edge is your move. It wouldn't surprise me to see him go receiver, but taking Keon Coleman high last class just makes me think that they might not want to again. So if that being said, I think edge is the move. And they'll take Scorton out of Texas A&M. So with the last two picks, I already said the Chiefs. I think Donovan Jackson would be a great fit. Like I said, I don't think they should take receiver. I don't think you should in back-to-back classes. Even though it is a big need for him, they kind of got destroyed. And the Eagles' front seven is great. They kind of got destroyed up front in the Super Bowl. With the last team, the Seahawks, it seems like they want to be competitive for a while, and that's why they're making a lot of moves that they are. An interior defensive tackle not surprise me whatsoever out of him. And I think Walter Nolan would not be a bad pick at all for him. So that's the full class there. Thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it all the way through. I'd be pretty surprised. But I hope you guys decide to subscribe or come back again.